I'm positive he makes me pray a lot.
Nice.
But at the same time, you know, when we have a conversation, we have to meet each other in some place that's loving. And I don't mean, you know, on so-and-so street or whatever. I'm talking about in the heart. And to meet each other in the heart really requires us to sacrifice somewhere. We have to sacrifice somewhere. You have to give up something in order to understand. And what I wanted to use as a motivating part of this conversation, take one of these and pass it around, please. And hold it in your hand, because we have to talk about transformation, self-transformation. You can't, you know, I teach children's classes a lot, and I'm always trying to discuss transformation in so many different ways. Last week I had to use butterflies and caterpillars, so I'll just use that right now. There's that space in transformation that no one knows. That space in transportation that you are not too sure of yourself. You know, there's that moment that things change and you go, ooh, you know, ooh. You know, you were here and now you're there, and you don't know how you got there. Well, it's one of the magical things and the gifts from God that we have within us, where the spirit and the consciousness connect. Your awareness, you become aware of something, and now you can talk about it. But in order to do that with someone else, you have to reach a point of understanding. And so you're always reaching out to the other guy. And this part that I handed out to you is still moving and coming back here?
Yeah, it's
It's still on its way?
Yeah.
It's coming.
Okay.
It's
This
taking.
little thing you got in your hand is one of the tools that Abdul'Baha uses. That he's an example to Baha'is of how we ought to be, how we ought to live our life. And he put this together, and I want to talk about it kind of line for line. I'm not going to just go through this and say what it is, but what you will find is each one of us is so different. You know that, but you know, it's really interesting to see that. And so if you're having a conversation and you have to do this yourself, what does that look like in your life? Is the question. And so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, because some of my friends say they got to leave at 3 o'clock, and I don't want this to go too long. You know? So as you feel it, and you feel like you want to answer number one, so what does that feel like? Be wise and tactful in the approach in a conversation. Anybody, just come up with it.
Not making assumptions.
Not making assumptions, okay?
Not assuming you know everything.
Thank you.
Wise and tactful in his approach? Okay. And you said that's what it looks like to you. But, you know, if you got the answer, is it always good to say?
No.
Right. Shut up.
You gotta get it.
Isn't there a quote about that?
Everything that's true, I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah. Right.
Everything that's truthful isn't timely.
So let's put number 2, wakeful and attentive. What does that feel like?
They were saying,
Pay
listen.
attention. Be present with the person that you're talking to.
Observing and trying to see what a person's their reality is at this moment. Where are they spiritually, emotionally? You know, what's their feelings? Are they really up to be up with you? Like you coming in butterfly, and are they up too?
Yeah.
Maybe they're a little bit down. Maybe you need to tune in to their pain or their where they are.
Anything that binds you is good, you see, because it's all about love. And any one of these things that binds you, anything that separates you, is not good.
Binds you to
The other.
We're speaking.
the creatures you're dealing with at the moment?
Yes.
The we.
Oh, okay.
Finding the we.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
The number 2, which is about wakeful and attentive in his early intercourse. Now, I've been having this little stubborn little cough intermittently. The brother behind her, he fixed me up some tea, and it gave me so much relief. That's a perfect example of that. That's what that
Who's the
is.
brother that gave you that?
Yeah.
All right.
Here he is.
You can have a broken
So
foot.
hell in, not that we're getting competitive.
Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking about listening and listening with one's inner ears. So much so that you are like that hollow reed
Right.
through which that person can play his or her music. And you don't add any of the notes. So that's seeking to understand before being understood. To me, is the epitome of being wakeful and attentive.
Now keep in mind as we go through this is a transformative condition. Like if you're not doing anything, any of these things, give it a try. So truth is blurred.
Yes.
And so you have to be like number 3, broad and liberal in your public utterances, because somebody's going to take offense to what you say. I don't care what you say.
True.
You see.
True enough.
And I don't care how kind you are and how blessed you may be at that moment, somebody is going to disagree with you. Be prepared for that.
That's what you don't disagree.
Be prepared for that. And even if you said good morning, they say, what do you think it is, or whatever, you know. Somebody will have something
Good for you.
So be prepared for that and be humble about it. You know, that's their reality. So I'm sorry you're having a bad day. How can I help you?
There you
A
go.
girl with forgiveness.
Sweet.
Makes you think
Well, it
of
just
Come
made
on
me
in
think
the room.
about listening to Abby Tahisa Day's audio tapes, and he was talking about, in particular, he was talking about teaching the faith. And so he's like, agree with them. If they say this, agree with them. And then teach them so at some point they'll have a greater level of understanding. And so that ties into the statement in the way of don't be too specific, because if you say something specific, that gives them a reason to discount what you say and ignore everything else you say around it, and ignore you from
That point.
forevermore. From this point.
One of my most one phrase that I'm really proud of is to be diplomatic. And for those of you that don't know what diplomatic or what a true diplomat is, that's a person that can tell you to go to hell if you look forward to the trip.
Remember that.
I mean, don't be a diplomat. And everybody has a right to their own opinion, because no one knows how the other person got to that conclusion as to what brought them there. Had you been going through those same circumstances, you may have come to exactly the same point.
Cautious and gradual in the unfolding of the essential verities of the cause. The essential verities of the cause, you can say they are the virtues of humankind. And the virtues of mankind is justice, fairness, and honesty, and a whole bunch of other spiritual things that you can say will be found in this understanding of the spiritual verities. Passionate and appeal. You know, I have to reserve my passion, because my passion and tone come together. And so, you know, I can get so out there that I feel the guys tugging on me, holding me. But you see, when you look at the combination of science and religion, and you start reading physics, you see religion all over it. You see spirituality everywhere. And the scientists are stumbling all over this stuff. And they can't see it. And it makes me laugh. So I'm reading this physics book and I'm laughing. Because
It makes you laugh.
they're struggling with simple things that Baha'u'llah already said. And I'm saying, can't you see that? You know? And they're making these great discoveries of consciousness in existence after the death of the body. Well, if you understand physics, you know that the energy is a wave before it's a particle. And then when the particle leaves, it becomes itself again as a wave. It's not destroyed. And so the consciousness, as it comes into the physical form, and the physical form deteriorates, yes, so what?
Right, and then even if you are passionate in your appeal, it has a tendency to blow right through the fence and over into arguments too, where I think this is like you need to temper yourself. You need to know yourself.
That's not the sober.
Exactly, that's the most important thing about this whole package.
The sober I was talking about is a little different. You know, there's being drunk, there's being sober, and understanding both of those things. Sober is a powerful word in this sentence here, because you go from sober to argument.
That's what unsober relates to.
You know, those two words put together have me balking and reading it over again to see if I got it, because those two words really stand out for me. Sober and argument.
I hear the word argument here as presenting an argument like you would in court or a classroom. I'm presenting a thesis, a premise,
I think,
a position.
I look at it in contrast to the passionate. You want to be dispassionate in your argument. It's almost a little bit detached. You want to be a little bit detached or dispassionate in your argument. So you want to be passionate in your appeal, but a little detached from your argument in that it's not overwhelming to the person, and if it gives your argument a chance to flow to that person, or give it a chance for them to suck it up on their own without pushing that argument on them.
Practical.
It's kind of like, I'm so excited about it, what do you think?
I gave a fireside one time, and at the end of it, I'd just come back from pilgrimage, and so it was about the central figures of the faith, and we're Baha'i specifically. And the person who hosted the fireside at the end of it, as people were leaving, we had a lovely time. But she said, well, they understood your passion. They didn't understand any of the history that I was trying to impart. It was just like they got that I was in love with the faith. They didn't get why I was in love with the faith. And so it was off kilter. It has, our presentation of the faith has to be, it goes back to where is that person that you're meeting? Who are they? What are they interested in? Speak not less before you have the person has indicated that they're ready to hear.
I want to combine these in the conversation. That's why I want to get through them quickly, so we can look at it from another perspective. Confident in tone, unswerving in your condition, and still be confident in.
And it's unswerving in conviction. What if my conviction is that we're not separate? That's a conviction to start from. So if I start there, and whatever I'm doing with people, even if we don't speak the same language, I can start in the place that we already are connected.
The question then comes, let's talk about application, and let's take it into a situation of racial dialogue. Now, I use the idea of words in the dictionary, and you got a dictionary full of words. And they don't necessarily do anything but just, fill up the pages, 2,000, 30,000 words in the dictionary. And they just sit there on the table until you use them. And then you take you take the words and you can take any word. I'll take the word hit, H-I-T. Doesn't do anything to you. It's just there, H-I-T. You know, if you're looking at it, the second grade book or first grade book, Mary hit the ball with the bat. Big deal, you see. But turn around and say it another way. The man in the police station was hit by the policeman. Then a whole new idea comes forth. And a whole different attitude comes forth with that simple word hit. You see? Now in language we say, well, it's the context and all that. Well, fine. But there's an emotion that comes with it. Because there's a belief that also comes with it. There's a foundation with that word and the policeman. And you might say, he did what? You know, as opposed to Mary hit the ball with a bat. And I say, you didn't say she did what? You know? And so it's that emotion that comes with it. Because there's a spiritual underlying feeling and attitude you have about that word when it's used with other words. Now, it's the same when you're having a conversation with a person that says Black Lives Matter. You know? I could say lives matter. And you say, well, of course. But if I say Black Lives Matter, then you say, well, our lives matter. You know? That's what usually follows, you know? Oops, what have I done? Did I hurt you? Did I say something wrong here? You see?
Yes, you did.
Words. Words have power.
Yes, would that be contingent upon the listener as far as like
Absolutely.
So you got.
And that's
And
the
the speaker.
That's the direction I'm
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
That's the absolute direction I'm going. No matter what word you use, what context you think you're giving it in, it doesn't matter. Only thing matters is what the listener does to it. That's what makes the conversation. Not your speaking.
We used
But
to
the
call it
listen-
how it lands on somebody.
It absolutely. The conversation is complete when the listener takes it in. And they give it the definition, not you.
That's right.
There's,
And that's why you end up saying, well, I didn't mean that. You know?
there's
Because
also,
they took it a little different. Yes, go ahead.
Louis, there's this model of intent and impact.
Yes.
So it is the intention of the speaker to be very well-meaning most of the times, but it's what the listener hears and what lies between what the speaker says and the listener hears, and that's called the arc of distortion.
Right.
Because in that arc of distortion, you're bringing to that particular interaction all of your culture, your mores, your experiences, your stories, and that happens on both ends.
Right.
So you have this clash of hearing and discerning, unless we go back to this where it says wise and tactful
Right.
in his approach. So, and that comes with any interaction that we have. As an African American woman, I have to consciously work to be as open as I can, because if I don't, then I'm always thinking, now how is this person interacting with me based on my skin color and that I'm an African American woman? That's all almost like an automatic for me. And for many people of color, I won't say all people of color, but the many that I've worked with, it becomes so automatic. It's just there all of the time. But we flip through it so quickly because we've been conditioned to go to think that way all of the time. And so I know we're told in the writings to forego some of the suspicion that we have. So I have to, as I do this work, intentionally be in the present as I interact with people who are of a different skin color. I won't say race because we know that's fallacious, not really true. But because of my experiences that I've gone through, for the most part, people are initially interacting with me as an African American woman, as an African American woman, as opposed to a woman. So
Yeah, wait, go ahead.
No, I wouldn't say anything else. Go ahead.
No, I mentioned that a similar thing, which I call that screening,
Yeah,
or filtering rather.
filtering.
I call it filtering. We constantly filter. We as African Americans, it's just something we do. You learn
We
to
do.
do it,
Right, it's,
and we use it all the time,
Yeah.
even when speaking to one another.
yeah, we do.
Yeah,
Excuse me, what human does not do that?
I don't know.
No,
But
human does not do that. All
I
humans
don't
do
know.
that.
Huh?
All humans do that.
Well, the question is, what are you screening for?
Yeah, it's
True.
You see,
Absolutely.
What
the
are
thing
you
is, all
screening
humans may do it, but what you're screening for, and what we're screening for is that which might harm us.
Yeah.
We're looking for
Yeah.
that which might harm us, and it is that we have to be cautious of, so that our responses will be measured and wise and tactful. Yes.
You talk about that stream or that being aware of how what you're saying and how it's affecting how this other person receives it. The tracking, as you
Tracking,
said. African Americans also have to do it with other African Americans due to the damage that has been done to us as a people. You see, and so as an African American, who considers myself trying to be conscious, talks to another African American, I have to see if they're somewhat on the same wavelength, or otherwise I can be offending them and pushing them away just in conversation that I think is a positive conversation. So I have to,
That's the internalized piece that we.
yeah.
Epiphany. Because for me, you know, I've had experiences with people that have said things that are offensive or that put me off. And I think of them kind of like, well, they're a jerk. And I kind of carry them, you know, okay, that person is a jerk or whatever. But then as a man, I've looked at how men talk to women or how the interactions go.
They're pretty much jerks.
Oh, yeah, well, I know. No, but I realize men have to go through a process. No, really, I've noticed this as a man. My own process from where I came, and you know, socialization and self-examination, that I've had to re-educate myself, and I had to say, oh, so when I'm around someone who's white, like maybe an old coworker or something like that, and they say things that are offensive, and I think of them as jerks, I can be very easily, in the same way, the male version, the gender version of that to a female friend or coworker, and I could either be patronizing or do something that just touches a button with them as human beings for something a wound that they carry or that they're tired of hearing and feeling put upon by as a man. And I started to realize, like, toward oneness, that I feel like God's teaching me. Our first step towards oneness is understanding what is it that has wounded us, and working past that and recognize that.
You know, the black men's gathering, but it makes me think of that in a sense. Black Lives Matter because black men were getting shot down, and the terms by the police, and it was happening over and over and again, and folks made a statement that black lives really matter. And that's a passionate statement. And when you come up with saying all lives matter, I don't know if you're listening to me. Because,
I know you're not.
you know, it seems like it originated from the black race, and then all of a sudden it has to change to the universal all lives matter. Well, I know all lives matter, but all lives aren't being shot up in here. And when that phrase came out, it pertained to all of the brothers that were getting killed. And so what I would look for my white brother to say is, you're right. You don't have to tell me all lives matter now. If you understand what I'm saying, you would say, you're right.
Yeah.
One of the things that I struggle with as a white individual who lives in a neighborhood and community that's like white. I mean, we don't have much diversity where I live. And I find, even amongst Baha'i friends, that there's not an acceptance that there's even a problem, you know? We're not racist. Everybody's equal. They spout, you know, race unity and stuff, but in, I don't, you know, my struggle is how do I present myself so that I don't shut them off, because if I come on too strong, they're closed right away to the idea that there might be a problem out there. You know, so I'm trying to find a way to reach them a little more without shutting them off. It's a real challenge for me.
Your point there, I want to bring something out that I think is important for this group and like the group in Kansas City. We don't have some of the friends with us that we do have in Kansas City that couldn't come, and particularly ladies. We've got some a woman of color and those that come from the majority. The Baha'is, they're studying with us because the comment you just made about how to, you don't want to say certain things because you don't want to drive them away, but you know that conversation needs to be held. Only you can have that conversation with them. And that's your task. And I'm putting it on you straight and blunt.
You gotta find a good way to
we've
do
had
it,
this
you know?
conversation
You gotta-
for 2 years in
you gotta
Kansas
be cool.
3 years, really. And some of our white Baha'i friends, we love them to death, that are in the group. Recognize this now. It took time, and what helped them was conversations like this. They had to sit and listen to the experiences that we had of people of color. And then they began to see things that they never noticed before. And we started to share books, we started to show films, we did all kinds of things, and just continued to talk and love one another. And then that awareness began to appear until it angered them. And I thought that was interesting. It angered them because I should have seen this before, item one. I've got to share this with my other friends, and it's my job to do that, you see? Because when I speak of it, or anyone else of color speak of it, zoom goes up that invisible wall. Here they go again, you know? Here they are, they always
And we
bring
already
it.
argued about that.
I don't care who it is, yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
thought,
already had
have we settled this,
Yeah.
you know?
That's right.
We're Baha'is. We don't have this problem, you know? Well,
The guardian of the Baha'i faith has said that white people have a sense of superiority, which has been around for a very long time. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. But our job is to find out what on earth that is and how do we contradict it so that because it's often subconscious. It's not even conscious. So in recent years, there's been some really great books for white people. One of them was called Witnessing Whiteness, which was a wonderful, that even offered a workshop series if you wanted to take it. Another one was Waking Up White was another one. And the most recent one I found, Tears That Will Not Stop. He presents it as a minister giving a sermon to white people. So our task is first a surprise. What? I have what? Something I don't know about? And then it's very painful. And one of the things I learned in the Witnessing Whiteness, how desperately white people want to be liked. Our task is huge, but the rewards are amazing that finally we can break the cycle of racism that has continued for hundreds of years in this. And the joy that brings when you get really a sense of our oneness and the journey that our brothers and sisters of color have gone through and continue to go through. So, yeah.
But I just wanted to piggyback on a little bit of what Lindsay said, but go back. I mean, this observation of when Michael Brown died 3 years ago, that the protest community was largely African American. This fall, late spring, when the Stockley decision was made.
Stockley.
That decision was largely white. It was more white than black as far as the protesters in the streets. Blacks were the minorities. We might have been like maybe 40%, maybe, but still it was largely white. So I'm saying that to say, and it was a largely younger community, maybe more women, more younger, but it was very white. So that showed me the amount of conversations that's been going on for the last 3 years, and that it is permeating the white community. Because I still hear conversations about, people going to work, having conversations with maybe white counterparts, white people talking to white people at work. And so I'm thinking where you live in your white community is further out of the, but I have a feeling that it's going to get there. And I also see different events happening in time, and I see, maybe things that happen maybe in mostly white communities that they have traditionally thought happens in black community, and they're like, how did this happen? And they're all like, oh, and I'm like, it happens in black community every day. Why are you so traumatized by this? But so I think things are happening to bring those worlds together, and that you can with the training that Lewis is talking about and awareness, that you'll find those inroads to capitalize on events that are happening to do what you want to do.
What I hear and what I've processed thus far is I can I can understand that, like with the Baha'i faith, it's about a sharing of the power. But in the traditional world mode, it's almost like an insular thing, because in order for white supremacy to survive, they have to always oppress certain segments of a populace, And with that, if as long as you do that, that means you can afford to have that insulation of being able to live 50, 60 miles out, but you can come into the area of the demographic of people to raise HE double hockey sticks on them, because that's your job. Now I know that it's good to have law enforcement, but I'll just tell you from my personal perspective, because I have garnered a few things in life, and just ride a motorcycle, and they pull you over and says, well, there's someone that match your description or something like that. Now I've got this big old huge land yacht motorcycle pulling a trailer, and they will run me through, keep me on the side of the road for 20-30 minutes, and then just like you were saying about how to diffuse the escalation of a situation, and that escalation comes in through wisdom and not emotion, because if you jump off into emotion, well, you'll have some tape around you.
You're gonna get Rodney King.
So that's what I do here. But that's one thing that I can say is a breath of fresh air about getting the basic understanding of this group, because at the same time I'm not going to just dog out the church or whatever. But it comes to a point in time where you grow and you leave some things back to begin to undertake your climb, so you can get to a better place, And
say, where do you think we can be most effective?
Where we can be most effective? Well, as it is now, just like in the grassroots movement, it doesn't start at the top, it starts at the bottom. Each one teach one. So that means that whenever that means that to deal and engage with people like and people unlike. I know that that's what that is, because I have to go out in some places and I have to deal with people for appliance parts and stuff like that. And I find out if I go in there with a chip on my shoulder, I don't get my part usually till 2 weeks later. Do I cast my pearls before swine? You know, not calling them swine, but if you just throw that out there, they'll never get it, you know. But until they're brought up to get the some understanding, then and then alone does it really begin to make a difference, you know.
Last question. What do you see as a Baha'is greatest challenge in teaching other African Americans about Baha'u'llah, the faith? Greatest challenge.
The greatest challenge. The greatest challenge, I see something. What I see here is in the traditions that people have learned, and how I'll tell you what. I'm being from a particular Judeo-Christian background in the past. You know that there's a lot of poison out there. And that poison comes in the form of just defective Christology. It really, I mean, it really do, because you know, yeah, it comes in that. But until the true light of understanding, and I mean, understanding unity, understanding. That's you know, it's going to still be there. Still going to be a real pervasive thing, you know. But you know, I mean, does the Baha'i have any? I know Dan deals with the radio or some of the radio stuff. It's got to get out. That's the way I see it. It's got to get out, and as it gets out, and as people engage people at these some of these meetings and stuff, but I can also see the futility in that, because the structures and the power that be can't make money and fuel up the court system if there's peace and harmony.
That's right. That's right.
They can't.
And I think the more that the white race finds out that how they are manipulated, that truth will help them see. That's just one aspect of the truth, seeing how the need for oneness or the need for truthfulness, it be useful in them understanding how our aspect is. If they've been duped, what do they think, you know, has happened on the other side to African Americans? And then also them giving a higher level of understanding and them starting to doubt some of the propaganda that has been, you know, perpetuated.
Just put in Ta-Nehisi Coates and it'll come up.
Yeah, I found it good for clarifying some of the positions and that you know have been perpetuated, and it does it in a scientific way. It's not just, you know, conversation and opinion. And I think the more we look at scientific evidence, the more we can present it to your in your arguments to other Caucasians, that's going to persuade them rather than say, don't be bad, don't be mean to black people. But here's some evidence that that approach is not valid, it's not productive, it doesn't help us as a people, as white people, it doesn't help.
I don't know how popular it is, but it seems to be growing, is that racism is like a drug of addiction. That people become addicted to this feeling of power and whatever comes along. Because anytime you look at oppression, it's always about the power dynamic. Those who are empowered and those who are being targeted. So even looking at it, actually through the lens of the Baha'i Writings, that says racism is a spiritual disease. So there have been a couple of books. That's right. That's right. So if you look at it, also from that perspective, you can almost bring in a sense a spiritual medical model to the dismantling of it as well. So if you think about it as a disease and it's an addiction, so what do you do? What can we do to help that person overcome his or her addiction? So just
Or even recognize.
Recognize
There are
it.
a couple of key objectives, I think, that I have found more useful. One is to appeal to people's compassion. As we know, when whites have been acculturated to a sense of superiority, and they have quite a bit of confidence in presumptions, and they become hypocritical. That doesn't mean they want to be hypocrites. They just don't know they're being hypocrites. And so to help bring people around to that, there are things like appealing to the compassion is one thing. Like, for example, when someone didn't understand something going on in Ferguson and started using the term reverse racism, and I said, you know, let's get out of Ferguson for a moment and let's put this in a whole different context. Let's say you're living in a war-torn country, and every morning before you send your children out to go to school, you have to warn them about the people who are wearing uniforms and what not to do around them. Do you think your children would grow up to trust the people in uniforms? And you say, well, of course not. You know, and so I would like get them out of the argument and appeal to their compassion and allow them that opportunity. And that I bring to the table in some words or another. Do you think you have, and that bounces off what you were saying. You have information. You're reframing.
Reframing.
You are reframing, the art of the reframe. No, it's the art of the reframe. And if you get people off the defensive, and then they start getting self-protective about not wanting to be wrong. Okay, and then they're more open, and so it's creating that hearing. You know, Baha'u'llah says don't speak without a hearing. And so it's important that we don't go offending people, because we want people in the room having the conversation. And we have to learn how to not walk in saying, oh, you whites are so stupid and you'll never understand.
If we do fall, or we are hurting, or something reminds us, we see a curve and we're like, oh God, I fell over one of those. You know, like things that re-trigger or re-stimulate. We could say, I'm hurting, when we feel like we're in a space that we can share that, or with someone with whom we can share that. When we don't, then we don't share the hurting. So that compassion, when you said that, I was thinking about Amy Turner and her TED Talk. She knows you, Billy.
Amy Hunter.
Amy Hunter. I went and saw her recently, and she's from St. Louis, and she is phenomenal. And I'm just like, if you say, well, St. Louis is where the problem started, you know, it isn't. But I swear it became national, international news with Michael Brown. With, you know, what are they doing? Torturing things, you know, they. You know, like if St. Louis is a place where it became really evident as a conversation, then why can't St. Louis be a place where it gets healed? Why is that not also possible?
For the most time, we're always accommodating. And sometimes it gets fatiguing. So if there is a time and place where somebody is surprised by a reaction from a person of color, just realize that this is a lifelong journey we have of nurturing, accommodating, and sometimes being so flexible that we have to bend over backwards, you know, and contort ourselves in order to create this atmosphere and environment where we're able to talk to our white brothers and sisters and to be on the wavelength with them so that we're not saying something that will be offending and would shut them down. So I don't know if sometimes people don't realize that it is a daily practice on our part to do that over and over and over again. And I think we have been given the bounty to be blessed with that incredible kind of patience. You know, we are the pupil of the eye.
I mean, Billy to leave without establishing a thankfulness of this group. I just listening to your level of awareness brings comfort to us. You know, when we call a group like this together in Kansas City, there's certain people who show up, and then there's some who don't. And you want them all to show up so that you can experience this, you know? And so when it comes time for you to come to Kansas City, I hope everybody in this room shows up, including Wendell. And the conversation that we've had over the years between St. Louis and Kansas City, we've had some good ones, you know, friends came up to Kansas City, we had a wonderful time, and doing some of the things that we know how to do. And what we need to do is strengthen it, because we have a chance to broaden this and do a major teaching project. I hate to say the word project because that seems like a one-time thing. But it's not.
One love revolution.
Yeah, we're talking capacity, yes, but we're talking action too.
Yeah, also the capacity is ability to
Yeah,
on a repeated basis.
And so both of these have to work at the same time. That's just like the particle and the wave. You know, the action of the wave is to become a particle, and when the particle is transformed into something else in another dimension. And we as a group here can come together tight, and then that tightness transformed to something, to a force in Missouri and Kansas that has to be reckoned with.